Aotearoa, Europe are looking for him.
We are reaching out to all our international partners for assistance.
He's an exceptional assassin. He will kill again, unless we stop him.
There's no record of him anywhere.
This guy's a ghost.
I know I can find him.
I've heard good things about you, Bianca. Don't let me down.
His code name's Jackal. He's a mimic. Oh my God! Somebody's hiring the Jackal for another kill.
What do you do?
If I told you the truth, then I'll lose you.
This is a wild goose chase and it's not helping our department's reputation.
Are you saying we should just walk away? That's not the job I signed up for.
There's only so much I can do to protect you.
I will find him and I will kill him myself.
One man is not worth all this loss.
I like to win.
So do I.
I just want to know who you are.
So 14th of November was when this one came out on Peacock, apparently. I'm assuming then that means it's going to be on Netflix or something in New Zealand at some point. But, I mean, Josh, you nailed it first up with the music.
Didn't I?
It had exactly that.
And then that moment of silence,
Yep.
I told you, like, it would be the non-diegetic sound that would stop.
Ooh, can I just say, diegetic. Great word. Great word.
I did go to film school, so, you know, I should be able to whip this out at a moment's notice.
Okay, so for those of us hypothetically who don't know specifically what diegetic means.
Diegetic is sound within the actual film, therefore sound you can see produced by something happening, dialogue or otherwise.
I like it.
Non-diegetic is the sound that is added post, like music and otherwise, to amplify the film.
This is educational and entertaining. This is worth the price of admission, admittedly for a free show already. Seems very generic. Can I make my first complaint about it?
Of course. It's your show. You do what you want.
It's the illusion of compliance that I offer you, the illusion of consent that you can provide. Eddie Redmayne as an international assassin, no. No.
Okay, so I was actually going to bring this up with you.
Oh, good. Okay, good.
The casting choice to me is intriguing. It's weird. It's weird. It's just
exactly.
Weird.
Don't kind of soften the blow here.
Yeah, it's weird.
Yeah. What is it about it for you that
Eddie Redmayne is not the actor that you think embodies a international spy, assassin. I think of...
He looks like the kind of guy who would break into tears when he orders an oat milk latte and gets a soy one instead.
Yes.
That is the aura that he portrays.
However, is he therefore more unassuming? Like, if he doesn't look like an assassin, does that make him a better assassin?
I see. Maybe they need to have his villain origin story. Like when he's at school getting pushed over in the lunchroom or something like that.
I'm sure there's probably
or getting wedgies or being locked in his locker or something. And then that's what turns him into an international assassin later in life. I mean, it would need to be in the film for that to work. And then the other thing that always gets me too with these, admittedly having not watched this film and unlikely to watch it, that there's always that person who says, I'm going to get him. And this person's always set up as like this impossible to catch international legend. And then somebody will find him somehow on a street corner and then manage to like win a gunfight against him. And you're like, you've got to be kidding. Like that's how I'm already predicting this is going to go.
Well, it does look very generic, which is interesting to say considering was maybe the first of its kind. Maybe this was actually the thing that birthed all of these generic films that we get in the same plot, because with the same plot, because it's, you know, from 1971 as a book.
Oh, I see what you mean. Yeah.
The first film, 1973.
True. At the risk of really getting myself in trouble, what's the bet that in the original book, all the protagonists were male?
No comment. No comment.
All right, fine, moving on then.
Trending with Andrew Curtis.
I'm not saying it's good or bad, I'm just saying that's probably how it was. All right, moving on then to One of our major news services in the country, one of the last standing bastions of news and journalism produced by our very own Aotearoa. And that, of course, is stuff.co.nz. And so what is the most important news story on Stuff? Well, in fact, the most important story is one we're going to get to a little bit down the list. So we've had to skip down their rankings just a couple more to broaden your perspective on what most New Zealanders care about. For this one, unfortunately, we don't have a video or audio to play you, but we do, however, have this article. Number 4, in fact, on their most popular news stories, 5-star Queenstown Hotel's illegal crayfish confession.
Dun, dun, dun.
It's a whole new genre of show. Food confessions. What do you think?
Well, it's a bit of a big scandal for sure. I mean, we know here in New Zealand we're very particular about when you go fishing.
Yeah.
We've had shows on TV. This was like the height of New Zealand drama. Those fishing shows where the cops are checking the haul that you've brought back in, that everything is to size, you haven't taken too much.
I mean, I'm nodding and smiling, but I've never experienced this
Did
because
you not know
I
this?
don't fish. No, I'm just not.
Well.
I'm not the fishing type.
So there are rules when you fish. You can't
Yep.
take too much. You have to,
Sure.
in order for our ecosystem to thrive.
Blah, 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 blah. Yes.
Exactly.
Okay, sure.
However, this rather luxurious hotel
Mm-hmm.
has been flaunting the rules for quite a while.
All right, so let's take a look at it then. And reading through the article now on stuff.co.nz, a luxury Queenstown hotel that has hosted prime ministers, royalty, and pop stars is being sentenced for unlawfully possessing crayfish. What if they had a dealer at the back? It's like, psst, hey kid, do you want some crayfish? He's got them inside a coat. It's like hanging down one
jacket.
side. Do you want them? Which color do you want? What size? What shape? Whatever it is, cheaper by the dozen. Rees Management Limited and Rees Hotel Chief Executive Mark Rose admitted fishery charges in March that were laid by the Ministry for Primary Industries. The company was convicted, and Rose applied for a discharge without conviction. So apparently they admitted 2 charges of being a director of the company that unlawfully possessed fish for sale, and 2 of failing to take steps to prevent the offences, and a representative charge of failing to keep invoices.
It is so interesting to me that this was number 4.
Right?
In terms of the most searched for stories, or most looked at stories on stuff.co.nz.
Is it partly because this says 5-star and there's nothing we love more than rich people getting comeuppance?
Oh, well, yeah.
It's a little bit, what's the word? Tall poppy syndrome. But still, you know the best thing about all this? While I was away, one of the reasons was because I was involved in an event in Queenstown. Guess which hotel they put us up in?
I think it might have been the Rees Hotel.
Absolutely correct. Absolutely correct. Not a whiff of crayfish, though, while I was there.
Oh.
So I can't comment.
Off menu? You didn't
As
order?
to the quality, that's true. Maybe there's like a secret menu, like a black menu.
Yeah.
You go into the room and there's like, here's your room service. But then like there's a false back in the book and then you open it up and it's like the black menu. It's like, ooh. And it literally says illegal crayfish on it. Just so you know you're being
How
really
did they get
naughty.
caught, we wonder?
Trending with Andrew Curtis.
So that was your number 4 story on stuff.co.nz. But now back to something else that I have somewhat of a personal connection with. I'll try not to hyperventilate while we talk about this one. But Queenstown Marathon. That was your number 14 news story from the week that was. And, associated dramas as well with the Queenstown Marathon.
Yeah, so hundreds of people were found a little bit wrong-footed, pun intended, when trying to actually make it to the Queenstown Marathon. A lot of delays due to Air New Zealand not running on time.
So here's an update from the New Zealand Herald. And flights being aborted, passengers being very upset, and all they wanted to do was go for a run in the mountains.
A whole terrible series of events happened tonight. We got on a plane thinking that it was just going to be 2 hours. And as the plane started coming down, as we saw the runway, it decided to we just started ascending again. And really, they decided to turn us back to Auckland because apparently the crosswinds were too heavy for us to land. I really don't know what happened tonight because this was the first time I've ever experienced something like this. Usually flights get cancelled before. They don't put you on a flight, fly you there and decide, yeah, we're going to start. Yeah.
So tell us about where you've come from and why you're in New Zealand.
So I came from Taiwan. I flew over from Taiwan. I originally went back to Taiwan to be with my parents for a little bit. And then we decided that we were going to run in the marathon down here because the marathon in Queenstown, we heard, is absolutely gorgeous. And so my parents went earlier at the 1 p.m. flight, and they made it. They landed. Yeah. So they're there right now, and I'm here trying to figure out what the hell our next move is going to be. And it's tough. They said that they got good food, and they're waiting for me. And I don't even know if I'm going to make a marathon, honestly.
Guys, he doesn't know. Doesn't know if he's going to make it to the marathon.
Tough times.
Pour one out for the boys.
Poor man.
So, people missed out on doing the Queenstown Marathon. That's kind of the whole story, but apparently that was enough to get it to number 14 in the country. Do you think maybe people considering next year and whether or not it's worth queuing up for?
Well, perhaps, yeah. I think a lot of people maybe were even in the moment figuring out whether or not they could get there or be a part of it.
Right, sure. I actually got a text message from Air New Zealand because we were supposed to be flying out of Queenstown. The same thing that put me down there for the Rees Hotel was the reason that we were flying back on the Saturday. And we got a text message from Air New Zealand to let us know that they're expecting large numbers of people coming through the airport. Please get there early, blah, 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 blah. So we did this, my wife and I. We left promptly, nice and early.
Good job.
And managed to end up on the one street that intersected with the people running the Queenstown Marathon in such a way that we had to sit there in this massive queue of cars waiting for there to be a gap of runners so that the cars could go through because they were coming across the road right on an intersection. And for some reason, known only to the Lord himself, these people could not be asked to run maybe a little bit further up the road where they were not maybe intersecting with 3 or 4 lanes of cars. No, they had to cross directly along the front of where all the cars were queued up. So you'd literally have 2 or 3 minutes between one car being able to turn right into this road that would have taken us to the airport. We're only 6 minutes away, but there we were for half an hour. I'm not making this up. And I've never punched a runner before, but this is the closest I've got.
Getting out of the car and just...
Oh my God. I mean,
that does seem like poor management. Like,
this
surely
is what
there's some
I
sort
think.
of route that could sustain both.
Well, this is exactly what I reckon. Would it have killed the runners to wait for 2 seconds? Would they not have wanted the rest?
I don't know about that.
What?
As a marathon, not that I've run a marathon before, but you're trying to keep a consistent pace. You're building into it. You don't want to kill everything because you had to stop because one larrikin has to pull through.
Larrikin, you say? Larrikin, how dare you?
Trending with Andrew Curtis.
Taking a bit of a leap up the charts, though, right now as we go through our news stories from the week that was and the stories that Kiwis were most interested in. And we're all the way up to number 7 now on this one. A new name for many people. I suppose that explains why they were searching for more information about her. But Katie Taylor. Katie Taylor was your number 7 search term in the country over the last week.
So Katie Taylor, if you're unaware, is a boxer. And you might be thinking, I can now link one and one together. There was a big boxing story that happened most recently. So in one of the undercard fights for Jake Paul versus Mike Tyson, she was one of the fighters, is still quite renowned, I think. Not undefeated, but is now it's not the featherweight.
Right.
It's like the extreme lightweight champion of the world.
Just keep listing weights. It always blows my mind how many boxing weight divisions there are.
Well, that's what I was about to, because you know better than I.
Yeah, there's like about 5 or 10 pounds, not even maybe 10 pounds in some cases, sometimes 5 pounds between the different weight divisions.
She is the undisputed super lightweight champion.
Sounds like an oxymoron,
not the
doesn't
featherweight,
it?
yes.
I'm the super lightweight. I'm really, really big at being really, really small. Yeah.
So apparently this fight was actually the most entertaining of the evening, even though the big bout was, carded to be Mike Tyson, Jake Paul. That's disappointed for many fans.
But we'll get to that possibly later on. Spoiler alert.
But take a listen to the audio here. A little bit of controversy in this bout as well.
Glory! History made again! Taylor and Serrano with an epic encounter! What more do you want from professional boxing? Simply incredible.
Wow. I'm standing up on my feet.
We go to the judges' scorecards for the official decision. All three judges see the contest 95 to 94, declaring your winner by unanimous decision, and still the undisputed super lightweight.
You know what? Texas has always been a cauldron of controversy. How does one rob Amanda Serrano after a bravura performance like that, Rosie?
What were you thinking before the judges announced the scorecards? Did you think you had done enough to win this fight?
Well, it's obviously very hard to tell during the fight, but I knew it was an absolute slugfest in there, an absolute war, and I'm just thank God I won this fight, and congratulations to Amanda. She's a fantastic champion.
I'm a featherweight, man.
You are a tough fighter, period. The cut obviously very significant. How much did it bother you throughout the fight?
Listen, every time you get a cut, it bothers. You get blood in your eye, it hurts. She kept headbutting me, but we knew that from the very beginning, from the first fight. That's what they do. It's not only my fight, she did it with Chantel Cameron. Listen, I'm a Boricua. I'm going to die in this ring no matter what. No matter how many cuts I have in my face, I'm going to die to the very end.
She's going to die, everybody, and the crowd loves it. So, controversy, though, in this fight, because, again, even though Katie Taylor was the one who was announced the winner, some controversy about whether or not it was merited, Josh.
Yes, so you also heard her competitor there, whose name escapes me. Do you remember?
Amanda Serrano.
Thank you, Andrew. Yeah, so talk about how she was headbutted multiple times, which, look, I'm no boxing expert, but you even saw it if you were watching via the stream, by the way.
Yep.
You can check it out at rema.co.nz. There was a headbutt scene, or a moment where the body is moved upwards and the top of the head is underneath the chin, so she's just getting a little extra blow.
Yep.
Controversial to say the least.
And it wasn't only that as well, because Serrano, after the fight, you might have heard the crowd not too thrilled about the result. The overall boos was still coming through on the microphones, even though it was scored 95-94. Serrano put up the stats after the fight and showed that she had landed literally twice as many punches.
How does that happen that then, therefore, it is called this way? I mean...
Well, so the way that boxing is scored, or combat sports in general, is that it's not done on a punch tally necessarily. Every round is scored subjectively by the judges. And so if they think, say it was me versus you, Josh, we do, say, 3 rounds. The first round, if they think I did better, which admittedly sounds rather subjective, right? They think I did better than you, they award me the round, I get 9, you get 8.
Okay.
And that's it. It doesn't matter if I hit you 50 times and you hit me 10, it's still 9-8. Well, it might be a 10-8 if I absolutely carry the round. Just, that's as big a gap as you can get. Then say the next round, you turn it around, you beat me, it would still only be 9-8 to you. So the overall scores at that point would be 17 each.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
And then you go to the third round, which again, depending which one of us wins, one will get 9, the other one will get 8. So you tally all those up over the number of rounds that you have, and that's how you get your winner. So it's not scored based on who got the most punches necessarily. And one of the things that can cause controversy is what they call, power punches or notable punches versus just, because you can throw out a light jab that doesn't really do anything versus a power punch that it spins somebody's head around on their shoulders.
Yes.
So now you're an expert in boxing. Does this change your opinion on it in any way, shape, or form?
Well, it tells me that it's rather complicated and also open to controversy quite often due to the fact that it is so subjective. Also, why particularly 9 and 8? Why not 1 and 2?
Because obviously, Josh, stop asking questions.
Trending with Andrew Curtis.
We're continuing then to look at the news stories from the last week. What were the ones that were the most popular? And we're going to go internationally again. Now, what was striking to me about this one was that we did not see this person in our top searches in New Zealand over the last week, even though I kind of expected, in light of recent events, that they would be much more prominent. Who am I talking about? Of course, Donald Trump. Donald Trump turning up number one this time, though, on the Guardian website in the UK.
Yeah, you make a good point, Andrew, that this wasn't really trending for us here in New Zealand, in Aotearoa. I want to know, let's put it out to everybody listening or watching right now.
Nice.
Leave a comment below, or of course text on through 8168 keyword REMA. Simply, do you care? The election result, Donald Trump. Are you following along? Are you paying attention? Or is this something that, we leave America, be America, we are New Zealand? Do you care? Feel free to let us know. We'd actually like to get a little bit of a poll going right now. Do you care? Do you not? Donald Trump? Let us know.
Yeah, man, love to hear your thoughts on that one. I mean, I've spoken, I think, a few times already on the show about the risks of us importing a cultural template from the US into New Zealand because, of course, most notably, they have a two-party system there, which I think also maybe creates even more division than perhaps you might otherwise have. Of course, that's a rich thing to say in New Zealand in light of what's been going on over the last couple of days, which also may or may not be in the trending headlines over the last week. Right? You're on the edge of your seats, I can tell. Look at you. But thanks for joining us anyway. This story in particular, though, that was number one on The Guardian. Now that Trump is in charge, he has started to announce what his policy positions have been, and then, of course, how he is going to bring about his policy objectives. One of the issues that some credit him as winning, as it being election winning, was around the matter of immigration. Now, cast your minds back, if you can, all the way to 2016, when Trump first became president of the USA, and he started talking about there being a crisis at the border. Now, I remember this at the time because he described it in these terms, and initially he was dismissed. He was labeled as a racist, and people started to criticize the fact that he was basically creating a drama out of nothing. This is all the way back in 2016. Cue the last couple of years where it's been acknowledged that they really genuinely do have a crisis at the border. Some numbers as high as 10 million illegal immigrants crossing over from places like Mexico. Though originally, of course, Mexico not being their country of origin, they might have come through from places like Venezuela or other parts of South America. Nevertheless, finding their way into the USA. Donald Trump has said, hey, I'm going to do something about this. I'm going to get rid of these people. Now that he's president, of course, the question becomes, well, how's he going to do it? Well, wonder no longer. Fair people of Aotearoa, because he's come out and said that he will utilize the US military to conduct mass deportations in the USA.
Big call.
Big call. Now, what does this mean, of course? There was some talk before the election that if there was a great degree of civil disobedience, that Trump may in fact use the National Guard to rein in political opponents, or at least that's the way it was framed in a few different places. In this particular case, this article on The Guardian, which again, by the way, how fascinating that this is the number one story in the UK, talking about a US president and how he's going to deal with immigration there, and it didn't rate a mention in New Zealand at all. Go figure. What does this mean? Trump is clickbait no matter where in the world you go. Maybe that's what it's about.
Well, maybe not so much here in New Zealand, though. Sorry to quickly interrupt you, Andrew, because we've got a couple of texts through that have said not interested at all, both from Lee and Amanda.
Interesting.
Both expressing that, Amanda says, yeah, I don't really care, and Lee says not interested at all.
There you go. So, and maybe it's for the best as well. There's something to be said for too much information is bad for you. And just sitting here watching the America do what America does, many people just seems to be a great way of just geeing themselves up and achieving not much else. By the way, that's true for a lot of international politics, but that's enough said on that one for now. All to say, as we go into this article on The Guardian, it opens by saying that Donald Trump said on Monday that his administration would declare a national emergency and use the US military to carry out mass deportations of undocumented migrants. In an early morning social media post, he responded, true, to a post by Tom Fitton, the president of the conservative group Judicial Watch, who wrote on the 8th of November that the administration will use the military to reverse the Biden invasion through a mass deportation program. Biden invasion. Now, interestingly too, one of the ways that this discussion was framed in the election in the US was that the Democrats would use immigration and particularly targeted placement of illegal migrants to swing the electoral results in key states towards the Democrats, thus guaranteeing that they would win future elections.
Interesting.
You know what's most interesting, though? The plot thickens on this one, right? Because most of these migrants are Hispanic.
Yep.
And so you'd think, well, then clearly that's a population that votes heavily Democrat. What shocked a lot of people in the last election was the huge swing towards Donald Trump from the Hispanic community. So it was up as high as, I believe, 45% of the Hispanic community actually voted for Donald Trump. That contrasts with, say, the African-American community, the black community, where it was only something about as high as, say, 20-odd% for black males, and it was only like 5% for black females. So that is the racial disparity, if you will. And when you consider this targeting of immigration, it makes that sort of outcome even more remarkable, because I think the belief was, maybe from the Democrats, that if we say, hey, this guy is anti-immigrant, then the Hispanic population of America would say, oh, well, then obviously we don't want to vote for this guy. Assuming, of course, that they would be pro-illegal immigration. Turns out not to be the case.
Do we have any understanding as to why that Hispanic community was so swaying to actually vote Republican for Donald Trump?
I'm glad you asked. One theory is that it's actually kind of an ironic bit of soft bigotry, you might say. The assumption that Hispanics in America are illegal immigrants. Because, of course, most of them are legal migrants. That's the whole point. And if you want to go to the USA, the point has always been that America loves a migrant success story. They genuinely do. However, they want you to come in legally. And if you are a legal Hispanic migrant and an illegal Hispanic migrant comes into the country, you are not a fan.
Right.
So they reckon it might have just blown up in their face a little bit by assuming that the Hispanic population would be in favor of the Democrat position here, when actually they're overlooking the fact that, well, you can still be Hispanic and a naturalized American.
I mean, it makes a lot of sense, actually. And I have to admit, like, I didn't think that deeply about it until you sort of brought it up, and it makes a lot of sense. My next question, though, is back to Trump using the National Guard or the army to actually enforce this mass deportation.
Yep.
How realistic is this in principle? Like, it can be said quite easily, but actually to carry out this
Once
in
again,
action,
Josh, I'm glad you asked. I'm actually very fortunate for this one, and I don't encourage everybody to do this because it's probably bad for your overall mental health. But on X a little earlier, I saw a panel discussion on this point, and they said when it comes to the 10 million plus illegal migrants, yes, of course, you can't just like round them up like a, have just a big line and just walk across America arm to arm and catch them all on the way through. But they have said amongst that number, there are millions who have, for example, committed a crime.
Right.
And are already in prison. It's like, well, there you go. National Guard, grab that guy, stick him on a bus, take him to the plane, see you later. Or others who have already been identified as undocumented illegal migrants. They already know who they are and where they're living. So in this case, it's just more of a way of utilizing manpower as opposed to doing that kind of government manhunt that you might have in mind. Now, there will be those who suggest that that would be the inevitable next step once you decide to utilize the National Guard. But that's one of the ways they're saying they could at least get started on this plan of getting rid of all the undocumented migrants in the USA.
Okay, so I guess we'll have to just really watch and see what actually happens.
Yep.
If this is bluster or if it is actual action. But I don't know, I'm skeptical, I would say.
Skeptical of a politician making promises they can't back up.
What a surprise.
What are you doing?
Trending with Andrew Curtis.
I should say too, by the way, we welcome your thoughts on this topic or any others that we discussed today.
Yeah, do get in touch. If you are watching, by the way, you are welcome to watch. If you're listening traditionally via radio, you didn't know you could actually watch Trending, just head online to rema.co.nz. You'll find the streams there. If you are watching, leave a comment below. Or, of course, if you want to listen and do it that way, that's easiest for you. Get in touch via text 8168 keyword REMA.
And coming in then at number 4. Admittedly, I thought this may be a little higher, but look, number 4 is still pretty good. Hikoi Wellington. Of course. And many a story has been written on this one. So before we share our thoughts, and of course, remember you're always welcome to share yours, let's take a look at the way the New Zealand Herald decided to cover this. Their headline, Hikoi to Parliament, tens of thousands descend on Wellington in historic day of mass protest.
They came in their thousands from every corner of the country. The destination was Parliament, where on the forecourt there was a fiery, impassioned speech from one of the Hikoi's leaders.
We are forever! The Hikoi does not end here!
And from Te Pāti Māori's co-leader.
And we got a message to
our people can come together and can show that we are stronger than whatever's going on inside the government house.
So I come from both sides, and what I think is best in the country now is that we unite rather than there's too much division.
At least 35,000 people converged on the capital as part of the hikoi. Activist Tama Iti emphasised that the day was not just about Māori.
Everybody's here. Aotearoa is here. Chinese, African, the Pacific Islands, the Pākehā, the Scottish. Everybody's here. So this is what this is about. So we can pull it together. I'm sure we can.
He told the Herald it was ACT leader David Seymour's Treaty Principles Bill which sparked a nationwide awakening.
I didn't come here for Tamaso David Seymour. No, not about that. You know, this is bigger than him. But thank you for being a super fella and for provoking the soul.
Provoked they were. The lawns at Parliament swiftly filled up as people spilled onto the surrounding streets. David Seymour and his ACT Party colleagues did attend the gathering at Parliament, flanked by police officers. In a statement, Seymour said thousands are marching in Wellington today to make their feelings known. I hope they will now read the bill and engage in the substance of the debate via the select committee process. Rawiri Waititi says he told Seymour during what he described as a heated confrontation that he should not attend the event.
I see him on the news today saying that Rawiri Waititi told him not to come. You goddamn right I told you not to come. He said he wanted to have a say. You had your say on Thursday. Today is my people's say.
You know what, I suspect the reason is that if I was to get out there and speak and give my side of the story, it would really deflate a lot of the angst and hatred that's been wound up on TikTok and the caricature that they've tried to create of me. Actually, the organisers didn't want that, Te Pāti Māori didn't want that, because that would seriously deflate a lot of their kaupapa.
But my message in general to the hikoi is we're not supporting the bill, it won't be law.
The speeches were punctuated by waiata,
finally we're being heard, you know, not only here in New Zealand but worldwide.
There was indeed a worldwide movement of sorts. Hundreds of Kiwis gathered outside the New Zealand High Commission in London. Back home, and the bill-ripping Māori MP Hannah Rafiti Maipi Clark, whose display in Parliament made headlines around the world, told the crowd the hikoi was about unity.
This march was never about the bill. I ripped that in half and chucked it away. This march was about walking, marching, side by side, generation by generation.
Despite the numbers and, at times, tension, police said the hikoi ran as planned.
So great to hear too. Overall, the hikoi was well mannered. I think there was one arrest that was reported over the course of the entire hikoi's journey towards Wellington. So great to see. And if you were there, we'd love to know what your experience was like.
Yes, do get in touch. 8168 keyword REMA. That is how you text. Or of course, just watch the stream, rema.co.nz, and leave a comment in the chat below.
I think Seymour being a little optimistic about his belief that if he had have spoken to the crowd, that would have diffused the whole thing, seems unlikely at this point.
Yes, for sure. I did find it amusing that he was called a bit of an idiot and was the one who stirred all of this up. That although, you know, the bill is the thing that has kicked this off, it is a little bit greater. Although it is curious to hear that as we talk about trending, this is, you know, the news stories that were trending over the week that was. But trending right now, Andrew, do you want to give us a little bit of insight into what is going on there? Because after the hikoi, a lot of people are wondering what is the Treaty Principles Bill.
That's right. In fact, today, usually we get to this at the end of the show and see what's trending, into the future. But what is the Treaty Principles Bill is the third most popular news story in the country in the last 24 hours.
I take heart from that, I think, because there is a lot of David Seymour, for whatever you think of him.
Yep.
I do agree that hopefully this has pointed a lot of people to actually investigate the bill and understand what it says rather than just hearing about it and then making decisions based on whatever other factors they are choosing.
Look, I will put myself out there a little bit and say whatever you want to say about David Seymour, I don't believe he's a racist. And anybody who's campaigning on that front, David's a very polarizing person in the same way that, say, Chloe Swybrick is for those on the opposite side of the fence. And no matter what they say, because of who they are, it triggers certain people. It doesn't strike me that whatever Seymour's motivations are, that they are motivated out of some kind of racial animus. It should be noted, by the way, that David Seymour is Māori.
Yeah, well, that's a good point.
So that's a point to contend with, which of course has sometimes provoked discussions on, when do you really count as Māori or not? There have been certain members of the ACT Party who have had their Māoridom questioned because they might disagree with those on the opposite side of the aisle. I think it's an interesting discussion to be having. And on a broader note too, this is where, if I may be so bold once again as to speak for, say, the wider part of New Zealand, the treaty itself speaks as an agreement between the Crown and between Māori, often discussed, of course, as the founding document of this country. But how it does apply to our ongoing relations with one another can be very confusing to understand. And I'll give you one example that had people baffled. You remember when there was a change of government and they made a change to the smoking laws in New Zealand?
Yes, I do remember, yep.
So one of the arguments that was made at the time was that this is a breach of the treaty.
I did not remember that, but yes, now that you mention it, that's right.
So for a lot of us, of course, nobody wants to breach a treaty unnecessarily. And of course, throughout our history, I think you have to agree that there's certainly been, the Māori have been more wronged against than wronged. That is just a historical fact. But when it comes to 2024 and how we then apply this, for many people to hear that kind of a thing and be like, I don't understand. Like how does this document then relate to things like changing to smoking laws? We've also had, changes to health services, for example, across the board, and whether or not those changes, because they may disproportionately affect Māori, are then also seen as a breach of the treaty. It's just very hard to understand. Now, historically, and should I say too, by the way, our colleague Andrew Urquhart has a great discussion that you can view via the REMA Facebook page if you want to understand, the YouTube page, if you want to understand a little bit more of the discussion around this one. Much of the problems we have today come from the differing interpretations of the treaty and keywords that were used in terms of whether or not we are giving across governance, or whether or not it's a full submission to the Crown and so on and so forth. We are still living in the shadows of those mistranslations even today. Can we have a healthy discussion about it, though? Was Seymour on a hiding to nothing trying to implement this bill that sought to clarify how we then interpret the treaty going forward? And then, of course, was his translation accurate? These are the questions we are wrestling with as a nation right now. But, of course, would love to hear your thoughts on this as well.
Yeah, do get in touch, 8168 keyword REMA, or, of course, just chuck a chat below if you are watching the stream. It also strikes me, Andrew, twofold. One, I'd like to point people to shinetv.co.nz because of the great documentary. Also, Andrew Urquhart was involved in colonisation, Christianity, and the treaty. I do recommend you check that out if you are interested in this topic. And the other thing that strikes me is we talked about American politics already today, right?
Sure.
And it's not a one-for-one by any means, the treaty and, of course, the, what do you call it? Not the Bill of Rights, but the document that it has all its amendments and stuff like that.
You talk about the Human Rights Act?
No, I can't remember what it is. But like the gun laws, and it's all about this, really, I must apologise here.
Yeah.
But it is that document that they fight over all the time. It's a historical document, and the interpretation of what it meant then and what it meant now. And what we have seen from an American perspective is there is no ability to have nuanced conversation.
Sure.
It is quite rigid, and so therefore it has led to many, many violent acts this day and age. And I worry if we don't allow ourselves to have those kind of conversations, are we going towards more of an American way of doing things?
Style of doing things. Well, look, let's be honest too, when we remind ourselves that fundamentally it's not about the American or New Zealand way, and this is where maybe our faith comes in as well here too. We are dealing with the fallen nature of human beings. And that is true all around the world. And even the Bible itself shows you that you cannot just legislate against the worst elements of human nature. You can certainly have laws in place to set up boundaries for one another, but it is a human heart transformed by the grace of God that makes the biggest difference. And even our foundations of Western society are established on that. So let's remember that as well. Even where the Bible talks about, we don't wage against flesh and blood, but principalities and powers, that can also be the thing that sows division in one another, that sees the worst of intentions from other people, chooses us to believe the worst of another, to see evil in others, instead of perhaps working towards a reconciliation. We are indeed ministers of reconciliation. That is what the Bible tells us. That's originally the purpose of the treaty. If you do look into that documentary on Shine TV, you'll find more about that, how heavily the missionaries were involved in a document that was supposed to build a bridge between the peoples. And even though it was tragically broken, it does express, to me at least, the very best of what Christianity can bring to this kind of discussion. So we do hope that that remains our guiding light in the midst of all this, not whether or not you voted blue or red or black or green, but fundamentally that we are all we all receive this reconciliation because of the grace of God, and therefore should bring that same spirit into these discussions.
Trending with Andrew Curtis.
And now for the hardest of hard pivots, because with only a few moments to go in the show, we've got an honourable mention we need to get to before we touch on our number one news story in the country over the week that was. Now, Josh, as you mentioned, this one actually goes back a few weeks ago, but it was breathtaking to see that this was trending, maybe not in New Zealand, but certainly in the USA.
Okay, so we weren't able to have trending during the election, but what we did note is, at least in America, there was a spike in trending results, or a spike in search results, I should say, on Google for Joe Biden.
But not just Joe Biden. No, because people were searching on the day of the election, did Joe Biden drop out? This peaked over 100,000 searches at least in the USA for did Joe Biden drop out the day before the election took place. Now, I brought up a story here as well in front of me, which on the stream you will be able to read through with me here. But it does say, this is on the yahoo.com finance page, of all places, it appears as if some were surprised to see that Joe Biden wasn't on the ballot this year. According to Google Trends, search results for did Joe Biden drop out have peaked this week and are spiking on election day, even though the president had dropped out of the 2024 race in summer in the US, so winter in New Zealand, and endorsed the current Democratic Party nominee, Vice President Kamala Harris. On the 21st of July, Biden shared a letter announcing he would no longer be running for president, although it was originally his intention to seek re-election in 2024. I guess a lot of people just missed the brief, perhaps.
Imagine showing up to the polls.
Yep.
And you know, pen in hand, you can't take your phone in, or you can't get it out, I'm pretty sure, while you're in the ballot booth.
I'll take your word for it.
And so, well, at least that's like that here in New Zealand. And so you see, Donald Trump, Kamala Harris, and you're like, where is Joe Biden?
Where is Joe Biden? A question many people have asked over the last 4 years, but in this particular election as well. Remarkable. I would say, too, what a blessed state of ignorance those people must live in.
Oh, my goodness.
As much as we might shake our heads at it, imagine being able to go through the last 4 years and not even remotely be thinking about what's going on in the White House. Admittedly, I think we have an outsized view of the impact that government has on our day-to-day lives, as opposed to, say, the choices you and I might make any given day. I mean, any kind of change a government makes is usually a few weeks, months, years before we actually feel the effect of it. But pretty remarkable.
Perhaps those people should start tuning into trending.
I think it's probably for the best, yes.
Trending with Andrew Curtis.
And now to the number one news story. Now, again, a reminder that Hikoi Wellington was number 4 in this country because number 1 by a country mile, ladies and gentlemen, was Mike Tyson.
Now, interesting, not Mike Tyson versus Jake Paul, but it was specifically Mike Tyson.
You know, actually, as a bit of a side note to this too, Logan Paul was trending this week.
But
at
not Jake Paul.
At number 15.
His brother, by the way.
We kind of skipped over that, exactly. So Jake Paul is the younger brother of Logan Paul. Logan, the originally, I guess, more famous. Maybe he still is. I don't know.
Nah, I'd say Jake has certainly taken over. Well, Logan was the first to pick up boxing.
That's
and
true.
Become, like, He was the genesis of this YouTube boxing phenomenon.
Yeah, celebrity boxing shindig.
But his brother has taken the baton and run a country mile with it.
So to the point where he's actually now officially been called out by a light heavyweight champion and offered him a title shot. Because let's all be honest here, if you did watch the fight, the one thing you learnt was that, well, Jake Paul's not winning a boxing championship anytime soon. The fight against Mike Tyson, you might be thinking, isn't Mike Tyson a little bit old to be doing boxing? Yes, is the short answer to that question. Mike Tyson, 58 years old. Now, admittedly, looks incredible for 58.
100%. Looks
amazing. And let's just say some of the footage we have of him shows how well-rounded his physical prowess is. You know what I'm talking about?
I do.
Yeah.
I do indeed.
Do you want to explain it to people?
Are you talking about that he took down his own trainer?
No.
In the ring?
No.
Oh, what are you referring to?
No, I'm referring to the outfit that he was wearing. After a particular interview, he turned away from the camera.
Yes, sorry, right.
The camera tracked him, and shall we say,
you saw
cheeky photo.
Yes, yeah.
It was a cheeky photo. But look, so this fight went on. Apparently, Mike made about $20 million out of it. Jake apparently made more again, but generally panned as a boring fight to watch. Mike looked every one of his 58 years, and Jake now racks up another win against a former champion who is well past his prime.
Yeah. There is also been a lot of backlash.
Yes.
And this may just be due to the fact that, this was hyped. It's Mike Tyson. He's returning. Jake Paul, we want him to lose because he's the bad boy.
We do want him to lose.
It's just like, he plays the villain well. He wants you to root against him.
That is true. He does do that well.
And that's why that is why there was so much interest in this bout, is because we actually don't like him. We kind of want to see him lose. He didn't, however. But the controversy lies in, because Jake did win and Mike was not performing as, at least we've maybe seen him in some training videos, or we know Mike Tyson, but of course he is 58 years old. Now all the allegations are it was rigged, Mike was pulling his punches,
yeah, there's
yada, yada,
certainly some clips that I've seen where the trademark Mike Tyson uppercut could have gone a long way.
And it seemed like he had the opportunity to do so.
Well, that's what I mean.
But literally, was he just suffering from old age?
It's kind of weird too, because somebody like Mike is such an aggressive competitor too. Admittedly, he's had his financial problems. I saw something the other day that said that Mike Tyson, in his career, earned $700 million, and yet at one point was facing bankruptcy.
Yeah, that's a bit of a mismanagement of finances.
That's not great. So was his financial situation dire enough that he's prepared to effectively throw a fight against somebody like Jake Paul? He was making all the right noises on social, of course, saying how Jake's wake is coming up. He's coming to get you, Jake. He's going to knock you out. He's going to smash you. And then, well, again, we saw what the fight had to offer. I admit it was a cheeky question to ask, but prior to today, I put up a post on our Facebook page to ask you the question about how well you think you would do if you were to fight against a 58-year-old Mike Tyson. My personal strategy would be that I believe I could do it if I could outrun him for 2 rounds. If I could just stay on the outside and keep circling around, make sure he couldn't cut me off, maybe I could survive. But I certainly, even fighting anybody for 8 rounds, I don't think I could do the whole thing and still be standing up afterwards just on my own physical fitness.
Just taking a quick look at that post, in fact, though, some people did get in touch.
Yep.
Sharon said, a round of what? Perhaps to clarify, a round of coffee at a pleasant cafe? Absolutely. A round of golf at a
Touche.
Yeah.
Well played. You know what? I gave you the opening and you took it. Absolutely. Well done for latching on to the terms and conditions.
Adrian, short answer, no.
Okay.
I mean, makes sense. Liz, yes, but I would be in a full body cast afterwards.
I mean, that's true. I didn't say you'd have to survive or that you would have to win.
No, that's also true. And Rose said, yes, as long as he can't catch me, which I guess she ultimately agrees with you as well.
Yeah, that would be my strategy as well. But there you have it. That's the number one news story from the country over the last week, and that is where we end things today as well. Mike Tyson, your number one news story in the country from the week that was. Will we see more about the Treaty Principles Bill in the week to come? As I mentioned, it's already a trending search term in the country today, but that is a question for next week. So thank you once again for joining us back in the groove once again after a few weeks on a hiatus. So thank you for being a part of the discussion today. Thank you for your chats. Thank you for your texts that have come through. Join us again next Wednesday when we go through the search terms that Kiwis just like you are searching for more information about. This has been Trending. I'm Andrew Curtis. Thank you once again for joining us.